Hi, today we're going to talk about upper thread tension. Upper thread tension is controlled by two main discs on the front of your sewing machine, these two here. Now the one we need to be concerned with the most is the tension knob here. Now a balanced tension stitch is very important. It will make sure our garment stays together and the stitch looks correct. Now to have balanced tension means the upper and lower thread will pull into the fabric equally balanced on both sides, and I'll show you an example of an equally balanced thread. Here's an example of a well-balanced thread stitch. Now if you have a look closely, I've used white as my upper thread and yellow as my lower thread. When you look at the stitching, you can't see any yellow on the upper side, and likewise you can't see any white on the underside. That's an example of a balanced tension. The thread has pulled equally into the fabric on both sides. This example is shown when the top tension is too loose. After the line's been stitched, the stitch looks fine until you turn the thread over. Obviously something's gone wrong here. Now we know that the stitch isn't balanced, obviously, just by looking at it, but what you'll notice is the bobbin thread is sitting in a straight line in the fabric, and the upper thread has created loops or little knots around it. Now this is a perfect example of showing you when the top tension is too loose. Now the other thing we can see quite clearly is if we continue to stitch without doing anything about that, when we open our double layer up, the thread will pull apart. Now this is not a good look in your garments, so always test stitch and look at both sides of your fabric sample before you go any further. Now here is an example when our top tension is too tight. If you look closely, you can see parts of yellow thread coming through to the upper side of the fabric. What happens here is the upper thread sits in a flat line on the fabric, and the bobbin thread has come up and is almost looping around the top thread. You can see yellow on the top, and if you turn it over, all you can do is see yellow on the bottom, and there's also some wrinkling of the fabric. So here's the example of our top tension being too loose. Remember, the threads are looped on the bottom. We need to come to the dial here and turn it to the right. Now however much you turn it to the right being tight, depends on your machine, but all you can do is just turn it a few clicks and stitch again, turn it a few clicks and stitch again until it comes right. Now when our top tension is too tight, as we've seen by the bobbin thread on the top of the fabric, we need to come to our stitch dial and turn it to the left, left being loose. We need to loosen off the top tension. Again, the degree we turn it will differ between machines, but just a few clicks to the left and test stitch until you get a balanced stitch again. Our seam strength depends on a balanced tension, so it is very important before every sewing project to do a test stitch and check that you have the 20/5 ratio. If you're having problems with your stitching and running through these examples using the knob here isn't working, you might need to go and look at the bobbin tension. Sometimes what you think is the upper tension issue does tend to be the bobbin. By this I mean our top tension being too tight might also be a situation where our bobbin tension is too loose. Have a look at my other video on adjusting bobbin tension to check this.